So it's been a really good meeting, and I want to, if you like, throw out a few thoughts about where we go from here and say some things that may be uncomfortable for some people to hear, but I think we need to say them openly if we're serious about the project we're trying to build. Because what we all, I think, in this room recognise is the stakes have never been higher in my lifetime. I'm 63 in my next birthday, but I have never felt a sense of we are on the brink of some of the most serious, massive threats to people in this country and internationally as we are now. And therefore, what we're trying to do is not some kick for the left, for people to out-left each other, for people to tell everybody else that they're right and the others are wrong. We have to start from the premise that if we don't get it right, the future in this country looks absolutely bleak for young people, people of colour, people who face discrimination, people who just want to get by in life. Because whilst it is true that the mobilisations for the Palestine movement in this country have been inspirational and almost certainly have led to the birth of this party, other people have also been mobilising in a very sinister way. We haven't mentioned yet, but only a few short weeks ago, Tommy Robinson mobilised 150,000 people marching not just in London, but I can tell you thousands in Newtown in mid-Wales, people also in Scotland, making the lives of people of colour fear for leaving their front room, and mobilising people on a racist, reactionary, I think for Tommy Robinson, fascist basis. But it doesn't mean the 150,000 people who marched were fascists, far from it. There were many working class people on that march who have been taken in by the politics of the far right because the left has no answer to what they are worried about. And that is the issue I think that we have to ask ourselves how we're going to combat. What do I mean? What I mean is simply this. The Caerphilly by-election was astonishing for many reasons. But most astonishingly, it was that two parties, Reform and Plaid Cymru, got 87% of the votes cast in the highest ever turnout in a by-election for the Welsh Assembly. Labour got 11%, the Tories got 2%. So the two parties who've dominated politics in this country for over 100 years got 13% of the vote. But the worry for us is that Reform got nearly 40% in that election. In the current opinion polls in Wales, where our first election next year will take place under PR, Reform are currently on course to either be the largest or second largest party. In the latest opinion polls, Plaid Cymru will get 37 Welsh MPs, Reform will get 36. Those MPs are going to be elected, if we don't challenge them, in the Rhondda Valley, in Merthyr Tydfil, in the heartlands of where this Labour movement was built and where some of the most heroic struggles of the British working class have been fought over the last century. So I start by asking a very basic question. Do we want to talk to ourselves? Do we want to out-left the person selling that newspaper or giving out that leaflet? Or do we want to talk to millions of working class people in all parts of Britain? And I say simply this, if we do not talk to the millions, if we do not mobilise tens of thousands, think of what Nigel Farage has promised. If he wins the election, he says he will deport 30,000 people in 2 weeks. We look across the Atlantic in horror to see masked people of the state in America raiding factories, going into migrant communities and picking people up, arresting them, cuffing them and deporting them to jails in Latin America. It doesn't take much to imagine in Britain, under a Reform government, that the same type of raids will take place in parts of London and Birmingham and other parts of this country with people being told they are not welcome. Look at the reaction to the stabbing on the train. How long did it take for the racists to come out on their keyboards, the organised racists, telling us that Starmer has blood in his hands, this was an immigrant, and this tells us this country has gone to the dogs. And it turns out it was an immigrant who risked his life to save working class people on that train. So the question that I ask is that we can see the scale of the problem. We've all mentioned it. But I can tell you in communities the length and breadth of this country, many people wake up and their problem is they cannot get a bus. They cannot get a hospital appointment. The school is struggling. They find that they cannot afford to buy things. Their wages are dreadful. Their jobs are insecure. And let's be open and say it, their trade unions, and as a former General Secretary I take no pride in saying it, are far too timid in taking on the cuts from this Labour government. So those people wake up, and what do they say to themselves? They say Labour isn't the answer, we know the Tories isn't the answer, God help us about the Lib Dems. So those people, in a very sophisticated operation, are being persuaded by the far right that the anti-establishment, as if Farage and Richard Tice, who have millions between them and the anti-establishment, are convincing that their problems are the establishment, immigration, and they will solve their ills. We know if they get into power, this will be the most divided country that we will ever have seen. So, comrades, my appeal, therefore, is to say this. Given what we need, given what we have to build, I am happy to say the antics of those people, those anonymous people behind the scenes at the top of your party, have been shameful. They have been disgraceful. Because what they risk, as we've seen from the 800,000 sign-ups becoming 50,000 members, is alienating people who say, here we go again. They cannot even agree before the party is launched. Rather than the new politics we were promised, what we have seen is the worst form of Labour movement skullduggery and backroom stitch-ups that would make any right-wing trade union leader proud as he sipped his pint of beer. So, if it is like that, how do we stop them? Well, the only way to stop people going rogue and becoming, if you like, trying to craft out through terrible means a way for them or their ilk to lead the party is to say this. If we sign up en masse and get active en masse, this party can hold those people to account. This party, through being democratic, engaging in grassroots campaigns and speaking to the working class of this country, can bring people to heel and tell them, stop your messing around, let's get out there, let's take on what's going on in every single community. And my parting message is this. In Wales, we have tried to do something differently. You may be shocked to know there are 31,000 sign-ups in Wales. Jeremy and Zara asked Beth Winter and I to lead this project in Wales to a founding conference and have an interim leadership before we could have democratic elections. And yet, despite 7 requests, the people behind the scenes at your party refused us access to the mailing list of the Welsh members, would not even give us £1,800 so the people from Anglesey could run a coach to come to Merthyr Tydfil where we had our founding conference. So we did it on our own. We did it without any money. We stooped to that Welsh Labour tradition of getting the Merthyr Labour Club to give us the room free, as long as people bought beer and drinks, and people obliged. And what we had was 250 representatives from every Your Party group in Wales, 100 online, and we came together and said, we are going to get on with it and try to lead by example. And here's the 3 things I'll finish on that we decided were core. Firstly, we unite around a core, radical, economic redistribution of wealth, anti-austerity, tackling poverty as our core mission. Because when you knock on the door in the Rhondda to somebody who wants to tell you it's all immigrants' fault, you need to tell them what you'll do about the buses, about the cuts in the local government, about the fact the library is shut, the swimming pool is shut, about the fact that their kid is on a minimum wage job without union recognition. They want to hear about how we'll fix their problems, how, for God's sake, they get on the housing ladder, how they can get a council house, some social housing, or ultimately even be afforded at some point to own a house of their own. That's what they want us to talk about. So what we have to say to our own ranks is recognise the real failings of the left in the last 10 years. And I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, but I can tell you, having run a union, that the poisonous way that some on the left have behaved in the last 10 years brings shame on every one of us. When people are no-platformed, accused of being fascists or Nazis, are told they are not welcome because they will not sign up to somebody's purity programme based on left-wing groups lecturing the working class what they need and not listening to anybody who tells them they are wrong, we will not grow. If those left groups are the answer, they would not be small left groups. They would be mass movements. We cannot let them dictate to us. And comrades, that means when we say we're broad, we recognise that we should accept a whole manner of views. As long as people are not racist, they're not anti-union, they don't side with bad bosses, and they want to tackle poverty. So I'll be quite clear about those differences. If the left stays quiet when a meeting of 2,500 women in Brighton campaigning against male violence and misogyny is violently attacked, it should hang its head in shame. We can be a party that absolutely says we are for trans rights, we are against any discrimination whatsoever, but we're not driving women away, campaigning for their right to be heard without discrimination and feel that their rights can be something they can talk about. Comrades, if we cannot stop men threatening women for having different views, this movement will go nowhere. So I say this, whether you want to campaign and make your main issue women's rights or trans rights, whether you support the right of Ukraine to defend itself or you don't, whether or not you believe in this concept or that concept, you should be welcome to do what the founders of our movement recognize we need. Socialism is based on discussion, persuasion, debate, and winning your argument. It is not based on hectoring, hounding, and telling people that they are not welcome. And I tell you what, if we get that right, if we say we're all welcome to have our differences in honest debate, but what we're going to be known for is tackling poverty, supporting trade unions on strike, fighting the racist, defending refugees, this party can grow. And my final sentence is this. In Wales, the way we're trying to go about that is at our first meeting of our new committee next week, where every local group has a representative on the committee, we're telling them that they must come with a report on the activities of their branch and name us one campaign in their community that they are going to get behind and get involved in. Because that is linking grassroots campaigning and struggle with the need to convince people a new politics is possible. If we can grasp those ideas, welcome division, debate and difference, but focus on fighting against the real enemy, we can smash reform out of sight, we can bury this Labour Party and actually have a movement, both here and internationally, that really gives people hope. That's our challenge, comrades.